Good evening. Thank you for joining us from Yale News. I'm your host, Jaden, and this is my co-host,
Sergio, and thank you guys for joining us on Yale News. Our first story is going to be on mercantilism.
Good afternoon, this is John Tree, and we've got one of our reporters, Boulevard, who is currently heading to England to tell us more about mercantilism and see that exploitation in action.
Thanks, John Tree. I'm here at England. Someone should change that. Anyways, I'm here at England, which is a mother country. In the past, they took the resources that they got and they took it for manufactured goods, and they gave it to someone else. Here's a merchant right now.
Tea, come get your tea here, only at the low price of £200.
That was capitalistic. Anyways, this is one of the many examples of exploitation. It starts with England. They take the manufactured goods and then they give the manufactured goods for more. Back to you, John.
Well, that sure was surprising, but that merchant sure was handsome. Must be rough for them down there, am I right? Never mind that. Back to Sergio and Jaden after that.
Action. I'm your host, Sergio.
I'm your co-host, Jaden.
And today from Yale News, we go back to 793 CE where the Viking Age started. The Viking Age was a period of time where people would go to different places and explore. They may colonize, they may fight, but they were located in Scandinavia or Norway. One example of a famous Viking was Leif Erikson. He was a Norse explorer who thought to have been the first European to step foot in the continental America. Leif Erikson discovered wild grapes and wheat fields. He was also the son of Eric the Red, who founded the European settlement Greenland. Leif Erikson succeeded his father as the chief of Greenland settlement. Around 1000 CE, Leif Erikson began his exploration of the New World.
Now we are here with Leif Erikson himself in his royal temple. How was it to travel on his ship thousands of miles overseas?
Let me tell you something, boy. It was an incredible thing. You know, I always say that the ocean has its own plan for you.
So, how was it being the first person going from the old world to the new world?
It was a good feeling because it was the first time I was able to do anything like this. Or before anybody at all. It was cool seeing different things that they had compared to what we have at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sergio, back to you.
Hi, I'm Jaslyn.
I'm Tyler.
And we're here today with a medical update with Nurse Rios. Today we'll be talking about the Atlantic slave trade.
Our first question for you is how long can a person go without eating?
A person can go without eating for around 3 weeks, but also depending if they're staying hydrated. If they're not staying hydrated, it will only last 3 to 5 days of life.
Okay, next question. I learned that slaves had to stay in the urine for long periods of time. What types of infections could they have gotten and were they contagious?
If they're sitting in their urine, obviously it's not sanitary conditions for them. It can lead to just infections in their skin. Also depends if they have wounds in them. It could just cause a lot of problems to their health that obviously could put their lives at risk.
Our last question for you is after the slaves got whipped, how long do you think it takes to heal their skin? Also, do you think their skin will react in the infectious areas?
So, after getting whipped, obviously, if their skin opens, it varies from person to person. Everyone feels differently, but it's definitely a source of infections. And as we said, that they're not in sanitary conditions; they're sitting in their urine. There's all kinds of bacteria around them, so it's a place where they can get infected and just have sepsis, which is a medical term, just saying like a whole body infection. Which, if it's not treated properly, which probably it wasn't treated properly at that time, then it could lead to death fairly quickly.
So that's all here. Reporting live from the nurse's office. This is Jocelyn.
And this is Tyler.
Back to you, Jaden and Sergio.
Marco Polo.
Oh, thank you, Emily. I'm doing pretty fair, and you?
Good. So our first question that we have today is, how was your trip to China?
Oh, it was very fair, and we were able to get a lot done and benefited the country and making connections.
Well, isn't that just wonderful and amazing?
Mm-hmm.
So, how was your experience with the Emperor?
Oh, it was amazing, and I even served a position as a diplomat in Khan's court.
Oh, okay, as you see. Well, isn't that amazing? Now, for our third question, why were you imprisoned?
Oh, I was in prison because I committed a Venetian ship against Genoa.
Oh. Well, we have a chorus team right now for the rock.
Order in the court. Sir, take your feet off the table. You, Mr. Marco Polo, have been sentenced to death in the chambers.
What? No!
The Atlantic slave trade was the 3rd century long passage with a new valuable object, slaves. There had been slaves before, prisoners of war, but this was 100 times worse. Over 13 million slaves were captured and forced onto the Middle Passage, and almost 2 million died suffering or committing suicide.
The Portuguese voyagers had found Africans who were known to be a species lower than human. Europeans had never seen a human darker than themselves. Books later read that the Europeans were the superior race, which brings us to today's effects. We have several citizens of today's world in their daily life. Let's go to Jordan Live with a special guest, Mix Volunteer.
Hi, I'm glad Mix was here. Mix, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. You know about the Atlantic slave trade, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how do you feel about what happened?
I feel horrible, although I don't even think the word horrible can fully describe the really tumultuous amount of feelings that people have on the Atlantic slave trade.
What impact do you think that this has on the world today?
I think it has a very lasting impact. I think it's impacted even just the foundations of our country, leading to systemic oppression and white supremacy that I don't know if we'll ever fully be able to overcome.
Do you have any personal stories where you've been put higher than a person of color or just racial superiority in general?
Yeah, I mean, I've been white my whole life, and I've definitely had white privilege for all of it, right? So there's been times in my professional and personal life where I've benefited from that white privilege, whether it's been being stopped by a cop and being let go, that happened to my sister, whether it's from being an admission counselor and my experience with, how applications are read. And yeah, I think it really has. I've seen its impact even just in my relationships, from family or personal friendships.
Thank you. That was Mix Phyllis here.
Welcome Yale Soup. And today we have a special guest, Jamil, the person that has gone through the past of mercantilism of Europe and within its colonies and the motherlands.
You're very question.
What is mercantilism to you?
It's an economical exploitation tactic of a weaker country to a stronger one.
Based on your answer you have given me, what is your example of mercantilism?
When England formed colonies in the Americas, it made exchange for many things like gold and silver, raw materials, and food for harshly cheap prices. But in return, England gave these colonies manufactured goods. This also caused England's rival, France, to be exploited from making these forms of materials that England had.
Alright. That's a great answer. Alright. Why do you think mercantilism is illegal today?
It is illegal because it was exploiting the weaker, as well as it is an unfair exchange process because you're buying things for cheaper, crafting them into a manufactured material, and selling it for way more money than the materials were bought for.
Alright. What's your personal feeling about mercantilism?
Mercantilism felt horrible, especially how I was a part of the colonies, and after a while, I thought it was fair. But then after a while, I realized it was unfair because they're just selling the stuff we gave them for cheap for more to us in other places. So they're making profit from the things we made.
Didn't you have to buy it back though?
Yeah, it's exactly what I said. We bought it back for more, and they also sold it to other places for more.
Alright, take notes of that, guys. Alright, time to go back.
Don't.
Good evening, everybody. In today's news, we're going to be talking about the Atlantic slave trade. The Atlantic slave trade occurred in 1501 to 1867. The Atlantic slave trade had a humongous impact on the African Americans because some were forced to leave their country and were separated from their family. Throughout the forced journey, some African Americans were brutally harmed, and some of them were hurt so much to the point where their bodies and faces were unrecognizable. Sadly, through unsanitary and harmful ships, the Africans were hurt so badly that the population decreased due to death. But before we get started, we're gonna come back right after the short break.
Hello, are you a history fanatic? Are you interested into learning more about how brutal Europeans were back in the day? Go to www.bookshop.com to buy my biography on a first-hand account of the Atlantic slave trade.
Hello guys, we're back and we brought a famous guest to question him about his own books. Please welcome Alex Lima.
So Alex, why did you take the job to drive the Europeans throughout the ocean?
I started the job because they offered me $15 per hour, as well as provided me and my family food since we needed it because we were very poor and disease treatment was expensive.
Wow, how interesting. Well, why did you write the autobiography about what happened?
I started the autobiography because I wanted to raise awareness about what occurred in the time period and to let the world know how badly the Africans were treated so history doesn't repeat itself.
But did you feel any remorse about how the Europeans treated the African Americans?
Of course, I wanted to help them, but since I was only a captain, it was out of my control. And the Europeans told me if I interfered, they would call off all the deals.
Okay, so how did you feel seeing the horrendous things that you did see?
I felt sick to my stomach. I felt guilty that I couldn't help them or find a way to escape the horrendous place. But most of all, I felt that the Europeans had no heart based on how they treated them. I was always taught to be nice to everyone, no matter their appearance. But seeing the Europeans treat them like that, I was speechless.
All right, and so for our final question, how would this impact the future?
It'll impact the future by helping others reflect on all the horrible things that had happened in the past and for civilians to treat others with respect.
All right, and that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on our show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, and we'll pass it back to Jaden and Sergio.
Good.
And that's going to wrap it up today from Yale News. Hope you guys enjoyed all these topics we talked about today.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be here tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern Time.